Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about why fearful avoidant attachment styles may seemingly leave a relationship out of the blue. So we're going to cover a little bit about why this can happen and a little bit about what you can do if you find yourself in this situation, either as the fearful avoidant who may see this pattern in your history or as the person on the receiving end of this in a relationship. So first and foremost, you want to understand that fearful avoidants largely come from this place where they believe that they have to earn their worth. They're very rooted in like this subconscious coping mechanism of feeling unworthy as they are, and so overcompensating. And what this can look like in the manifestation of a relationship is if you see a fearful avoidant who's not working on themselves, who's not aware about attachment styles, who's not doing the work, a lot of the patterns are going to be that they won't share or speak up about their own needs because they will assume at a subconscious level, my needs are not going to be met anyways, or they're not worthy of being met because I am, constantly putting everybody else on a pedestal and I have to close that gap. So I can't really talk about my needs. I should just meet yours and become really good at reading between the lines and showing up to be there to meet your needs. Now, over time, this is not sustainable in a relationship because the subconscious mind, part of what attracts it to relationships is that there can be an exchange of one another meeting each other's needs. And so when that's threatened or when that's going to be imbalanced, a fearful avoidant will only sustain that for so long. So what we'll often see is fearful avoidants get into romantic relationships, try to sort of people please their partner in a way, like really impress them, really earn their worth, really like overcompensate. And then fearful avoidants on top of that are amazing at reading between the lines and guessing what people's needs are. They're not mind readers, they're not fortune tellers, they don't know 100% of the time, but they're very adept at picking up on like behavior and micro expressions and body language and reading between the lines. So right away, assuming that we understand that what conflict actually is the perception of imbalance. It's perceived imbalance between two people, right? And so this is what the breeding grounds are for conflict. So what happens is when you have this dynamic where someone's going to be really good at meeting someone else's needs, and then they're going to feel like they can't talk about theirs because they assume at a subconscious level that my needs will get rejected. I'll be a burden if I express my needs too much. My needs are shameful. I shouldn't have needs. I don't need to rely on anyone. Right away, you've got somebody who's going to really put out energy and really not take energy in an exchange. And fearful avoidance will then feel at some point in time taken advantage of or misunderstood or unseen or unheard or not important to their partner in a relationship. And so what's going to take place is often fearful avoidance will start building up resentment, but kind of like repressing it, like putting it down, not really thinking much about it, thinking, oh, it's fine, and being in like overcompensation mode, people pleasing mode, only to eventually hit a tipping point where they decide like, okay, this is it. I've had enough. This isn't working for me. This person doesn't care about me anyways. I'm not important. They don't do anything for me. I do everything for them. And eventually that perceived imbalance really builds up to the point where they get super frustrated. And then this is one of the places that you'll see an FA just kind of like cut loose. They'll just be like, okay, that's it. I'm out of here. And what's really difficult is the partner on the receiving end will often feel like, where did this come from? This person was so available. They were so sweet. They were really showing up. They were amazing. And what fearful avoidance is very classic fearful avoidant. The way in which they'll leave by saying, you did this, you didn't show up here, you didn't do this for me, you did it. And they'll have this like bag of grievances that they are like unloading. And it will seem on the recipient end like it's coming so out of the blue. And the hard thing about this is that it is out of the blue. And oftentimes, if a fearful avoidant just worked at becoming better at communicating their needs, they'd see that like people actually want to meet your needs the vast majority of the time. And that people, when you vulnerably and clearly articulate what your needs are, people are usually really great at showing up. And so it's this huge loss on the fearful avoidance part because they don't get to see that. And then they just leave relationships feeling like taken advantage of, like they didn't matter to somebody, like they weren't important, like they weren't cared about. And on the other end, the partner feels very hurt, like, whoa, what's going on here? Where did this come from? What's taking place? And so it's really, at its root, an important lesson in communication. And in removing the shame that the fearful avoidant associates with their own needs. A lot of fearful avoidance, because when they had needs in childhood, it felt like they were neglected, it felt like they were diminished, it felt like there was too much chaos going on around them for them to actually express what their needs were. They learned to associate their needs with shame, like, oh, my needs are shameful, or even feeling shame about expressing your needs. And so it puts you in like this invisible prison where you can't actually like reach out and share yourself or share your truth or get your needs met from someone else. And then it's just going to lead to resentment and feeling taken advantage of long-term in relationships, especially if you're really pouring your energy into another person. So what you actually have to work on as the fearful avoidant is reprogramming this idea that your needs are shameful, and actually coming to learn what your needs are, and then doing communication work to express them. We've got a really fantastic course all about communication and conflict, and how to actually work through things and be vulnerable and understand how to express what your desires are. And you can check it out for free for 7 days by clicking in the link in the description box below. It's called your conflict resolution course. And it takes you through a whole bunch of different really important steps and reprogramming tools to get really good at talking, at communicating with someone, and to remove your fears around sharing your inner world and talking about things that are important to you and asserting your boundaries and all that good stuff that's really important for communication to flow healthily. And then on the other side of this too, if you're the recipient and you're on the side that's like suddenly been pushed away by the fearful avoidant because they kind of like unload their bag of grievances, let them know, I didn't know any of this. And if you had communicated, and if you want to work on communicating, I will be here to support you. I will be here to like do this work with you. I think we can, move through this, but you have to take accountability and recognize you weren't talking to me about this stuff. And while you might be really good at reading between the lines and figuring things out, not everybody is at the same level of like awareness all the time, or of at least focusing on somebody else in that way all the time. And so it can be very valuable just to be able to have that conversation, to bring some light to that pattern that's taking place, and just let the person know, look, I actually had no idea, and I'd be willing to do the work if you communicated more clearly. And it's a really healing lesson in relationships. And if you're on the receiving end and you don't see this being, gone about in a healthy way, like if somebody's like, no, you should know, or, they're not willing to communicate or something like that, obviously you have to set a boundary and draw a line. But it's really important for both parties in a relationship to become aware of this. So hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully this gives some explanation for why fearful avoidance can seemingly leave out of the blue. It can also be when they feel really, really triggered by something, they try to push somebody away as hard as possible as a subconscious strategy to push away the pain they associate with that person away as far as possible. But we'll often see this specifically when there's a big fight. So it's not out of the blue. It's like suddenly in chaos, or after a big conflict. The out of the blue part that I really want to focus on is literally the part where like one day out of nowhere, all this stuff sort of comes about. And so those are the two main reasons in those different forms. So hopefully this all makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.